Every video in this series has told you to stay quiet. This one is the exception. One viewer wrote in after false statements were filed against her in a custody case. She said she couldn't just stay silent. She had to defend herself vigorously, or the damage would become permanent. She's right. And Machiavelli would agree with her. Not with the strategy I taught you 2 videos ago. Here's what nobody tells you about. Never explain. It was never meant to apply when silence lets real, documented harm accumulate. If someone's spreading false statements about you, filing fake reports, or building a paper trail while you say nothing, silence isn't strength. It's a head start you're handing them. So when does the whole framework break? That's the real question. Machiavelli built his entire philosophy around reading the situation correctly, not applying one rule everywhere. And this is the situation where silence stops being calculated and starts being negligent. Let's separate what silence actually protects you from. Ignoring a rude comment, a manipulative jab, the person trying to provoke a reaction. Silence works there because nothing permanent is being recorded. Nobody's building a case. Nothing compounds while you wait. That's the entire premise of the earlier videos, and it still holds. But one viewer described something completely different. Someone creating fake profiles and running a harassment campaign against her. Publicly, with witnesses watching it unfold. Silence doesn't neutralize that. It lets the narrative set without your side ever entering the record. Every day you don't respond, the false version becomes the only version anyone's seen. This is where Machiavelli's actual advice diverges hard from ignore everything. He never told the prince to stay silent while enemies spread false claims about him to the court. He told him to respond precisely, with evidence, at the moment it would land hardest. Not constantly, not emotionally, but decisively. That's the distinction almost every version of this advice skips. Calculated response isn't the opposite of strategic silence. It's the other tool in the same box. This is statecraft in its full form. Not withdrawal as a default setting, but the discipline to know exactly which tool the moment requires. Here's how to know which tool you actually need. Ask one question. Is this reversible? A rude remark, a cold shoulder, an insult, reversible. It fades whether you respond or not. A false statement in a legal filing, a public accusation, a fabricated account of what happened, not reversible. It sits there, permanent, findable, and it doesn't fade just because you didn't dignify it with a response. If the harm is reversible, silence still works exactly like the first video said. If the harm is not reversible, if it's the kind of thing that gets referenced later, cited, believed by people who weren't there, you don't get to opt out of responding. Machiavelli called this reading fortuna correctly. Not every situation rewards patience. Some situations punish it, and pretending otherwise isn't wisdom. It's just fear wearing the same disguise avoidance always wears. This has a real cost either direction. Responding means engaging with something ugly, putting your own account on record, sometimes reliving what happened to do it. But staying silent when the stakes are permanent costs more. It costs you the narrative itself, and narratives that go unanswered long enough start to look true by default, regardless of what actually happened. Calculated risk means accepting the smaller, controlled cost of responding now instead of the larger, uncontrolled cost of a false record standing unchallenged. So here's what changes for you. Before you default to silence on anything, ask whether the damage is reversible. If it is, stay quiet. The earlier strategy still applies, and reacting will only cost you leverage. If it isn't, if there's a record being built, a story being told without you in it, respond precisely, with evidence, at the moment it counts. That's not abandoning the strategy. That's the part of the strategy most people never learned in the first place. There's one more category this series hasn't covered yet. The person you can't avoid because you see them every single day. At work, at home, with no escape and no single decisive moment to respond to. That's next, because ignoring someone once is easy. Ignoring them for the 40th time this month is a completely different problem.